Welcome to Senior Compass. I'm super excited. We have a very, very special guest with us today. And unfortunately, on the day that we're recording this, it's a beautiful day outside and we're supposed to have a thaw. So I'm expecting to see shorts shortly after we're recording this. So I'll be on the lookout for them in February in Minnesota. So that should be fun to see if I see them. But with that, welcome, Shelly.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah.
Really glad.
We have a really special program today, and I think it's a newer program that's rolling out.
Yep.
And I also think it's going to be a fun way for us to inform people in the community, because I know, at least where I work, and then of course I also know through my spouse that there's a lot of assumptions made that are probably not accurate. And so it's going to be fun to go through some of that stuff and just get all the correct information out there.
Yeah, transportation is one of those things, especially in the rural areas. A lot of times people don't understand it, and so I'm really happy to kind of just have an opportunity to talk about, you know, what we do and what we're doing now that's new and different and things like that. So I'm super excited. It's going to be good.
Well, before we get into transportation,
yes,
let's find out, where did you grow up?
Where did I grow up? So I grew up in the St. Cloud area. I'm actually from St. Joseph, Minnesota,
Right.
so not too far away, a little bit more central in the state, but I actually ended up in Marshall because I came here to college. So
Oh, you came to college
yes,
here.
I did. So this is my home turf here at SMSU. So
Oh, wow. And what was your degree from SMSU?
my degree from SMSU was creative writing.
Creative writing.
Yes, so now I'm in transportation. It makes perfect sense, right?
Well, I can make the lines draw together, but I would say most people would say no, not at all.
Yeah, no, it's a little odd, but it's good. It's been good. I actually do use my writing skills quite a bit in what I do, because we do a lot of grant work. So almost everything that I do personally is funded by grants. So my creative writing has actually really helped in the grant writing aspect, and other things as well. But yeah, it was kind of a long and twisted road, but this is where I landed.
Oh, well, we're wonderful that you're here. It's
Yes.
great. So you grew up in St. Cloud, came to SMSU, got a creative writing degree.
Yes.
Did you then start working at it's UCAP now. It wasn't UCAP, but
it was Western Community Action when I started.
Yep.
I started at Western Community Action in 2008. And I've always been with the transportation program.
Okay.
So I started there in 2008. Now in 2016 we did change names. We are now United Community Action Partnership. Same agency doing the same things. We just merged with another agency to our north, which so then both agencies changed names, but we continue to do the same things that we were doing.
Right.
So I actually, after college, I started working at the Center for Independent Living here in Marshall.
Close to me.
Yes, very close to where you are at.
Yep.
And so I worked there for about 4 years, and then kind of alongside that, the Center for Independent Living was a part-time position. So alongside that, I also had a part-time position at the Y.
Right.
So I was working there, and I did Center for Independent Living for about 4 years before I got my job at UCAP.
Okay.
And I did the Y for about 13.
13, wow.
Before I said, okay, I think I'm done with part-time for now. I had kids, and so then after a couple of years of kids and 2 jobs, I kind of decided it was time to cut back and prioritize and
change things up.
Yeah.
So exactly what is your position in the transportation department?
So UCAP has many programs. We do a bunch of stuff for homelessness and all that jazz, you know, food support and things like that. So the realm of what UCAP does is enormous. Everything from helping seniors to helping preschoolers. So what I do is actually in the transportation program. So in our transportation program, we have kind of, I guess what I would say, 2 arms to our transportation program. We have public transit, which is kind of what everybody is most familiar with. It's the buses, the route buses here in Marshall. We also have services throughout 8 counties. So we actually do public transit services in Cottonwood, Jackson, Lincoln, Lyon, Murray, Pipestone, Redwood, and Rock counties.
Now, I think that's a bit of information that I bet most listeners are
Yes.
not aware. They assume the buses are just in Marshall.
Right. No,
Yep. And I also have people that assume that the only way not the only way, but they assume that the way for them to get a ride is to walk to a route. And so there's a lot more. So 8 counties.
Yes, so we serve 8 counties. And within those 8 counties, we do mostly what's called dial-a-ride. And I really don't like using the terms that don't make sense to people, so I try to stay away from the vernacular like that. But dial-a-ride is exactly what it sounds like. You call. And you ask for what you need.
Right.
And so then we would send a bus to your location, where you're asking to go from, and get you to where you're asking to go to.
Yeah.
With Dial-A-Ride, we're crafting a schedule where everyone fits in as best as we can, and so not everybody gets exactly the times that they need, depending on what we have on the schedule.
Right.
We'll get people where they're going, as efficiently as we can. So it's more like a taxi, but it's a shared ride system. So we're trying to get as many people on that bus as we can.
Going
in the same basic direction. So that's Dial-A-Ride. And Dial-A-Ride does serve all of our counties. So we have 2 buses that run throughout Lyon County.
Right.
We have 2 buses that run throughout most of our outlying counties.
Yep.
It's anywhere between 2 and 3 buses that run throughout the counties. So we don't just serve Marshall or just Redwood Falls or just those hub communities. We do serve the entire counties.
So what you're telling me is someone in Marshall, if they wanted to, they could call you, dial a ride, and say, I need to go to Tracy because I want to go visit a friend.
Absolutely. And the great thing about, I'm glad you mentioned Tracy, because we actually just last year started a brand new route called our Purple Route that actually does routes from Marshall to Ballatin to Tracy and back 3 times a day. So Tracy is actually really easy to do.
Okay.
We have those regular we do that regular loop 3 times a day.
Yep.
So, and we'll also do it outside of the route, but the route makes it more easy access.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can dial the ride for any of those locations. The county trips become a bit challenging because they are such long distances.
Yeah, a lot of area.
But we do the very best that we can with the buses that we have on the road to get people where they need to go. So as long as you have some flexibility within your schedule, it's really super duper handy. And we'll also work with people to help them with scheduling if they're having trouble scheduling their rides to coincide with an appointment. We can help them work with their healthcare provider and the transportation to kind of deal with some of those things if they would request that. And that's kind of where the second leg of what our transportation program comes in and does. So we have the public transit, which does the route services and the dial-a-ride and all of that. And then we have kind of what I do, which is more anything that is not public transit. So if we're going outside of the service area, we have a volunteer driver program that goes outside of the service area. If we have several vehicles now within our fleet that are specifically for transportation for the elderly and disabled. Those are not considered public transit. Now, all of these things work in harmony with our public transit, but they're not considered public transit.
So when they're not public transit, then it's easier for you to go outside of your service area, correct?
Then we're not bound by the service area. So within our public transit, we have a contract with MnDOT. I mean, and we won't get into any specifics, but that say that we can go within these certain boundaries. We can do these kinds of trips. These are the service hours. Anything outside of public transit, we have a little bit more freedom to go further or maybe be on different hours and that kind of thing. So we have the elderly and disabled buses. We have, I think 3 of our counties now have one of those.
Okay.
and we're working to get more of those within our fleet. Like I said, they're outside of public transit, but they do work in harmony with public transit.
Right.
So you wouldn't know a difference between one of those buses and one of our other buses, and they may be both on the road at the same time.
Right.
But they serve a different purpose. They're also able to help our public transit service when they're not being used for, or when they're waiting for one of those trips.
Right.
So we have the elderly and disabled transportation that we do, and then alongside that and our volunteer driver program, we're also doing things like I just mentioned to help people get the transportation that they need.
Right.
So if they're having trouble with scheduling, they can give our office a call,
Right.
and they'll usually get referred to me directly.
Right.
And I'll work with them on their specific issue. What is it that you're having trouble with? If there's a ride request that we can't meet, is there something that I can do to help them find someone who can meet that need, or whatever? And the other thing that I do as part of my work is grant seeking, as I mentioned. So if there's something that doesn't fit within our public transit program or within anything that we're currently doing, I will go and I'll look for a grant to fill that gap. So
that's where her creative writing comes in.
That is where my I'm very thankful for my creative writing. I really am. So an example of that is just last year we actually it wasn't last year. It was several years ago now. Time is going so fast.
It does go fast.
It does. But I applied for a grant and got a grant to start what we're calling a community connection van.
Right.
Community connection van is, right now we have one in Lincoln County. That's our only van, the only community connection van. But what that is that's a volunteer-driven, agency-owned vehicle. It's the very first time. Most of our volunteer drivers use their own vehicle, and they're reimbursed for their mileage. Which is still a huge need. We need those volunteers worse than you could possibly imagine.
I can't imagine that.
In the rural areas, those volunteers are hugely crucial. So this agency-owned, volunteer-driven vehicle kind of allows two things. For the first time since we have been able to do some wheelchair accessible travel outside of our service area, because the van that we now own is wheelchair accessible. So we're able to go outside the service area because it's not public transit. We can take people to Sioux Falls, Rochester, Minneapolis, wherever they might need to go. So that's been awesome. So it's those kinds of things that I do. I'm looking for ways to fill those gaps, and I'm looking for grants to help us do that.
Right.
And so we, over the last year or so, we're kind of taking all of our non-public stuff, everything that we're doing on the non-public realm, and we're calling it all community connection. We're kind of giving it its own face and name, so people know, okay, well, public transit couldn't help me, but and people will get directly connected if there's something that public transit can't do that maybe I could help them with. They're going to get directly connected to me or my volunteer specialist, who wasn't able to be here today but would normally be here with me. One of us will kind of try to help navigate what needs to be done in this situation. There are times when current resources still aren't enough to meet that need, but then we have documentation of that need, and we can say here's someplace we need to go. This is someplace we need to start looking. So it's we're really trying to meet more of the needs of the people in a rural area like ours with transportation. It's such a need. People don't really understand.
No, not until they need it.
Exactly.
Not until they need it, and then they become aware of it. I think that's very interesting, and I've always found the transportation in Marshall, to me, just completely mind-blowing. I know we've had an individual come down to the center that came out from metro area, and they said to me, this is the first time I rode public transit that I didn't have to walk 3 blocks to catch a bus. They
Right.
came right up to my curb. So you call it dial-a-ride. I tell them it's curb to curb.
And that's actually accurate as well.
Yeah.
It's also known as that.
Yep, curb to curb. And she goes, it's just amazing. I just got to walk out the end of my sidewalk and I could catch the bus. So she was really impressed with that. Before we get on to Seniors on the Go, another question that I often get asked at the center, they say, I think there must be 2,000 buses, and that's an exaggeration.
Right.
They'll say, they'll take a random number running around Marshall.
Right.
I see one going this way, and 2 minutes later I see one coming this way, and then I see one going that way.
Right.
What's going on?
Right. So, and I'm not the person to, I'm not going to promise you that my numbers are completely accurate, but at the peak of the day within the city of Marshall, I think we have, it's either 6 or 8 buses running
That's
at
what I was
any
guessing.
one given time. So it is, it can feel like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you imagine that, there's 6 to 8 buses.
Yeah.
The call center says, I got a person over on the north side wanting to go to the south side, and then there's someone in Midtown that wants to go to the south side, but then there's a bus over on the east side that needs to go to the west side. So can you see these paths
Exactly.
intersecting and crossing?
Yep.
And that is really what's happening out there, is providing that service.
Yeah,
So-
well, and then you've got the fact that a lot of times people will call at the last minute. So we have this schedule where that bus is scheduled over here. He really could have taken you had you called and been,
2 minutes
two
earlier.
minutes earlier. And
Yeah.
So it's the fact that you're using buses to help people meet their real life needs, and real life
Right.
happens at all kinds of speeds, and so you do end up having a bus that goes here and then this one goes there, and it happens because it's life.
Yeah, and it's just like you said, the way the calls come in,
Right.
and
Yep.
trying to meet the needs of the people
Yep.
that have those needs.
Yep, and so sometimes if you're taking a call, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour before someone needs to be there, yesterday there would have been the absolute ideal spot for that, where they'd been on the bus with 4 other people. Today there's not, but let's still meet that need. And that's
Right.
really the philosophy that we have,
Right.
is let's try to meet as many of those needs as we can.
Right. I think
Yeah.
that's just amazing. But today we specifically wanted to talk about Seniors on the Go. It's a
Yes.
new program. So
Yes.
what is the program?
So, I mentioned a little earlier some of the things that I work on outside of public transit, and this is one of them. So,
Right.
Assisting Seniors on the Go is a grant that I wrote last year and I received this year. And so I didn't receive it, we did. As a community, as an agency, we received it this year. And so what it is another couple of the things I didn't mention in terms of the things that I do to assist people, or that my end of things does to assist people. The Community Connection Program also encompasses travel training, which will help people learn how to use
The
the services
services.
that are available to them. So
Right.
public transit, or let's say they're calling for medical transportation and they're using some of the special transportation services.
Right.
Travel training will help them kind of navigate all of that. And how do I do this?
Right.
Who do I call? How do I get my ride?
Right.
So travel training and rider companions, someone who
Right.
hasn't ridden a lot before, or who has some maybe minor mobility or minor cognitive issues. Let's say a rider companion can go along and just kind of offer some support,
Right.
offer some distraction even, talk
Right.
to you so you don't
Right.
feel nervous while you're riding.
Right.
Help you maybe know, this is the stop, let's get off here.
Right.
A rider companion could actually go into the building with you,
Right.
help you find the room you need to get to, those kinds of things. Or like a light grocery shopping. If
Right.
you normally order groceries online, it comes to you. Today you really would like to go out
And pick them up.
and pick up your groceries. Rider companion might be able to help you do that. So travel training and rider companion are stuff that we're already doing. We wrote this grant, Assisting Seniors on the Go, that will kind of combine those services with discounted ride rates for seniors.
Right.
So our Assisting Seniors on the Go program, all of this service that we're already offering is available to the seniors, which it already is, but now
Right.
we're coupling that with, you can also get a $25 ride card for a suggested donation of $15.
Okay.
If a senior is not able to pay that $15, it is a suggested donation. Everything that goes into the program goes back to the program to continue it.
Right, right. Now let's talk about that, seniors on the go. So let's take it from the end. Say I'm looking at, I might be interested in volunteering to help with that, to be
Oh, then I want to be your friend.
to be that rider companion. Can I just call up and say, hey, I want to do this, and then tomorrow you're going to put me on the bus? I mean, what happens in between saying I might be interested in this and then what's the journey?
So it's actually a really simple process, but we can't just take you off the phone and then put you on the bus.
Right.
There is a very small volunteer application that we have. Part of what it does is just tell us what your availability might be to
Okay.
do these kinds of things. It tells us what your interests are. For instance, are you interested in working with people in beginning stages dementia?
Right.
Maybe you've had someone in your family that has gone through that, and you really want to be there for other people who are starting to go through that.
Right.
So you could note that on your application. It's a
Right.
very simple application to start, and then once you have kind of talked with one of our staff and kind of gone through a little bit of an orientation, which usually only takes an hour or less, if you decided something you want to pursue, we do have to do a background check.
Okay.
Yep, we want to make sure that everybody involved in the program is safe, including our volunteers. So
Right.
if we can look back and say, yep, this was done, yep, this, if we can check all the boxes, then we can kind of also be there to back up our volunteers
Right.
all the time. And that's something that's very, very important to us. And so what we're doing right now as we launch Assisting Seniors on the Go is we are also kind of trying to launch a volunteer piece to it where we're trying to recruit more volunteers.
Okay.
So even if a program participant, if someone wanted to be involved in Assisting Seniors on the Go, let's say they're interested in the discounted ride rates,
Right.
but maybe they're still very, very mobile.
Right.
Maybe they don't really need rider companion services, or they only want rider companion services for a very specific thing. That's fine.
Right.
If those individuals also wanted to volunteer to be that support for
Right.
someone else,
Right.
that would be wonderful. And we're gonna then offer those people that their whatever donation they would make toward a ride pass could actually be used toward a $70 unlimited
limited
ride pass. Instead
Okay.
of that $25 where it's going to be an ongoing, as soon as it's gone.
It's gone. You got to get a new
You
one.
get a new one.
Right.
That $70 unlimited will allow them to travel as much as they want to throughout the city or the county of their origin.
Right.
With one payment every
Right.
month.
And that's a monthly pass.
It's a monthly pass.
Starts
yep.
the first of the month and ends the end of the
Yes.
month. If you get it in the middle of the month, it's the same thing.
Yep. The first day of the month to the last day of the month. Now, as we move forward, hopefully we'll have some other faring options. So then we won't be necessarily bound by the calendar month, because we are looking at some electronic options for faring, which is
that
gonna
would be really
neat.
cool. But getting
Yeah.
that up and getting it going will be awesome to see.
Yes.
The other interesting thing within that, you're talking about some of the riders, and I can think of a couple in my head, that are probably very able to help others out and reduce their rate. I mean, that would be a win-win if they love helping people and
Right.
and you said they can determine how often they want to volunteer. So they may say, I only want to work Thursdays.
Right. They can
I only
even
want to work Thursday afternoons, and you'd say,
Right.
okay, we'll take you. Let's work this out.
And ideally in my head, because I always have these pictures of how it would work. Ideally,
Right.
Ideally in my head, it would be almost like a person to person thing. So
Right.
I want to volunteer for Agnes. I want to
Yes.
volunteer for John.
Right.
Ideally, what we would end up doing is having enough volunteers within the program and enough participants that we can just pair them up.
Pair them up, and they
And say,
build that relationship.
Right, this is your person.
Yeah.
And then maybe the person who's serving as that person's rider companion just wants someone when they're going to a medical appointment.
Right.
Makes them nervous. They want
Right.
someone there when they get done.
Yep. And I love that you mentioned the medical appointments. I think that's something like you found was a missing link with the curb to curb.
Absolutely.
Some people have that, like you said, that fear of going in. Okay, I'm going to go in. I know I got to check in there, but I have no clue of what hallway to go down to.
Right.
Or what office to go to, or I can get there, but then when I get out, I don't even know where I'm at in this building. So
Right.
with the seniors on the go, that person could stay with them and bring them back
Absolutely.
out to the bus. So
Yep.
that is just an amazing service that we
Yep.
would have available here
Yes.
in Marshall.
Yes.
So then if a senior...
And it's actually throughout our 8 counties. So we all
Oh,
of our
through the 8
communities-
counties.
Yes.
Okay, so
all of
it's
our,
the
all of our
whole
communities
counties.
will have it. Yep.
So let's start. I'm going to start to wrap up. I mean, my head, and I knew the transportation.
Right.
Probably not as well, definitely not as well as you. But if we think about it, I mean, at the peak of the day, there's 6 to 8 buses running in Marshall.
Right.
There's 2 route buses running. And the route buses loop takes an hour.
The red route takes an
hour.
hour.
The blue
route is a half an hour. It goes one way, turns
Yeah.
around, and goes back. So the
Right.
full route
Takes
an hour.
I knew the full route took an hour. I wasn't sure about
Yeah.
the blue. So that's
Yep.
a half an hour. So that goes one direction and then back.
Yep.
So you have those. And you can look those up, I know, online. And they're
Yes.
posted at some of the bus stops.
Yep.
So, there's access to that. And then we also have, you can dial up and say, no, I don't want to hop on a route bus. I want you to pick
Yes.
me up at my house.
Yep.
And I want to go to that point. Will you do that? And you say, yes, we will do
Yes.
that. Let's see
Yep.
what our schedule is, and we'll get you in.
Yep.
You may need to fluctuate your time, 5,
Yep.
10, 15 minutes some
Yep.
days. But you do that. And now you also have seniors on the go where you say, hey, if your parent is looking, or if you're looking, like,
Right.
hey, it's winter, I need to go to this medical appointment. I'm not so sure I want to step down my steps. Could you have someone meet me at the door? Take me
Absolutely.
down the steps. Go with me to the appointment. Help me find my way back out of the maze of hospitals these days.
Yep.
And then they'll say yes.
And I should say, too, that assisting seniors on the go can be used with a volunteer driver as well.
Okay.
So if you're going to Sioux Falls, if you're going to Minneapolis, our rider companion service is available even if you're not an assisting seniors on the go participant.
Okay.
The assisting seniors on the go allows you the addition of that discounted ride rate. So I
Right.
think one important thing to say about assisting seniors on the go is there is an application process.
Yeah.
So we're going to be starting to do some introductory events
Okay.
throughout our 8 counties, so people can be watching for those.
Right.
And what we'll do is at those events, we'll answer questions, we'll explain the programs, we'll help people through the application process.
Right.
It's funded by Title III funds.
Yep.
And so there's some things that we need to have documented in order to access those funds.
Right.
So I would mention that as one thing. And the last thing I'd mention is that if they are looking for a ride, just to give the number to make sure that people
Yes.
know where to call.
Yep.
And so in Marshall or in Lyon County or in Lincoln County or in Redwood County, so those 3 counties, Lyon, Lincoln, and Redwood, the phone number is 507-537-7628.
Yep.
So 507-537-7628. And if that's not the correct place to call, or if you need something else, calling there will always get to where you need to go.
Shelly, it's been fast-moving time. I think we're
Yes.
coming to the end. But really, if you're out there and you're watching, know that within Marshall, we are very fortunate and blessed to have so many transportation options. And I know for a fact that the people that ride that bus are little kids, perhaps even going as young as going to ECFE up
Yep.
to, and through those who come to the center and going to medical appointments.
Yep.
So I always say from birth to over 100 people are using the service.
Absolutely.
And know that it's out there for you. So reach out to them. And Shelly, it's been wonderful. Thank you
It's
for
been really
being on.
fun. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.